There is some massive news currently shaking the entire football world, and it has left Argentine fans feeling deeply jealous of Mexico. This isn't about the World Cup tournament or even the fans, but rather about a single player. Do you remember Gilberto Mora, that 17-year-old kid who made his World Cup debut for Mexico and quickly became one of their absolute standout stars? Well, he just snatched away a starting spot from an Argentine, and not just any player either. They were already labeling this kid as the next Lionel Messi, the ultimate superstar destined to lead Argentina's next golden generation. Surely you already know exactly who Franco Mastantuono is. But could he really end up without a club because of a Mexican player? Let's break down all of these incredible details right now. This is massive global news. The harsh consequences following the World Cup keep getting worse and worse for Argentina. And we aren't just talking about the heavy sanctions they might face from FIFA, which could very well ban them from the next tournament, but also because of some serious football karma. Lionel Messi is right on the verge of retirement and won't make it to the next World Cup. And the honest truth is that Argentina doesn't have another true superstar. They have a decent generation, but absolutely nobody who truly shines bright on their own. Now their next big promise, Franco Mastantuono, has suddenly stopped shining altogether. Back on June 13, 2025, the young player signed with Real Madrid from River Plate, and after a few solid months, the media was hyping him up as a priceless gem. Sadly, it seems like the hype was all just an illusion, and he is rapidly turning into one of the club's biggest recent transfer disasters. Real Madrid loves gambling on generational young talents, and Mastantuono was supposed to be exactly one of those future stars, but a stunning piece of news has just come to light. The real priority player sitting on the club's transfer wish list before him was actually someone even younger. We are talking about Gilberto Mora, whom Real Madrid has reportedly been scouting since he was a kid. So why on earth didn't they sign him back then? Simply because there is a strict rule preventing clubs from signing minor players, and Mora still hasn't celebrated his 18th birthday yet. Facing a run of terrible results, Florentino Perez was under immense pressure to bring in another big-name star. He desperately wanted to wait for Mora, but ended up signing Mastantuono due to that relentless pressure, which turned into an absolute disaster. He barely got any playing time and did not even make his national team's World Cup squad. Even so, many still see him as the great hope, but Florentino Perez doesn't want him anymore, since neither his level nor his behavior is convincing. To make matters worse, the club grossly overpaid for him, shelling out nearly €70 million in total, easily making it one of the worst deals in their history. That is why they decided to loan him to Fiorentina, a much lower-level team, because absolutely no one else was willing to pay that fee or match his wages. And what are the Argentines saying? They have actively criticized the biggest club in the world and its president, claiming he knows nothing about football and that Real Madrid is bound to fail without Mastantuono. They act superior, even though the reality is very different. As is the custom in Argentina, they overhype everyone. Lionel Messi is a unique exception, but to them, every single Argentine player is the best in the world, both now and forever. Real Madrid has reportedly already informed Mastantuono that they plan to sell him off if his game doesn't improve, especially since his potential successor is already lined up. That would be Gilberto Mora, whose signing would cost around $20 to $25 million, which is not even a third of what they shelled out for Mastantuono. They view Mora as the future midfield anchor of the club, even comparing him directly to Luka Modric, a comparison that even the Argentine sports press has had to admit. Absolutely everyone is praising him, and it is certainly no coincidence. For example, the well-known journalist Diego Plaza from El Chiringuito explained that Mora is a classic midfielder who can drift over to the left wing, but genuinely loves being near the opponent's penalty box. He is a true chance creator. We have to ease him in slowly, but he clearly has the makings of a world-class star. Even the French legend Thierry Henry shared his own thoughts, saying that he has no idea where this kid came from, but he is absolutely certain of his quality, and Real Madrid should sign him right away. Another major voice who spoke up was a current Real Madrid superstar, an active player who just delivered one of the greatest World Cup performances in history. We are talking about Jude Bellingham, who said that Mora had an incredible tournament. He noted that if Mora keeps playing like this with that same personality, he will go very far. But it isn't all sunshine and rainbows. Real Madrid's intense interest in Gilberto Mora leaves Mastantuono as the main victim in this entire situation. And Argentine fans certainly did not appreciate watching their world-class star lose his spot. Just as there is massive praise for Mora, there is also plenty of criticism. And it is no surprise who is driving most of it, mainly the Argentines. How shocking, right? Just a total classic. For instance, there is the highly controversial case of Flavio Azaro, who openly asked if anyone had heard the Mexicans talking about some 16-year-old kid whose name he honestly had no clue about. He claimed that in Mexico, people believe that if someone can halfway kick a ball, they must be some kind of football genius. That is why he stands by his claim that Mexican football is a joke, asking who on earth convinced the Mexicans that they actually know anything about football. That is how he spoke, not just about Gilberto Mora but about the entire country. Yet they completely fail to realize that their very own Madrid star, Mastantuono, was heavily hyped up by none other than themselves, constantly claiming he was the next Lionel Messi. Absolutely everything they criticize Mexican fans for doing, they turn around and do themselves. They love to trash Mexican soccer, claiming it completely lacks any real quality. But let us remind those critics of a simple fact. Lionel Messi was not developed in Argentina. He was built in Spain, at Barcelona. He never played a single official match in the Argentine league, and he will end his career without ever doing so. What a massive irony. His entire career was forged over in Europe, simply because they never gave him the chance to make his professional debut back home in Argentina. Argentina cannot take credit for Messi's legendary success. That belongs entirely to Europe. And yet Daniel Faba, a prominent panelist on a major Argentine television network, confidently claimed that Mexican soccer does not even exist. They come over here trying to sell us their so-called superstars. 16-year-old prodigies and heavily hyped global prospects who completely vanish the moment they play a real match against a genuine football powerhouse. Their entire stadium infrastructure and league model are an absolute disaster. You see, they are not just attacking individual players here, they are taking a massive swing at Mexican soccer as a whole. But what exactly do they mean when they talk about infrastructure? Real infrastructure is about exporting talent to the world. It is the modern stadiums, the massive jersey sales, and every single cent flowing through the sport. And those of you who constantly brag about having the best football in the world, you have stadiums literally crumbling to pieces with absolutely no money to renovate the home grounds of your biggest clubs. On top of that, you are forced to sign players from Mexico because your own budgets are completely empty. In fact, your domestic league has been repeatedly criticized for offering some of the lowest player salaries in the entire continent. Over there, they literally hand out power drills and fast food burger coupons to the actual best players of the tournament as MVP awards. How can anyone seriously talk about great infrastructure with a straight face? And then we have the remarks from Guido Glade, who openly questioned what global superstar everyone is talking about. He claims that in Mexico, any young kid who shows a tiny bit of talent is immediately labeled as the next football messiah. They play against amateur leagues and somehow convince themselves they can compete in South America or Europe. It is nothing but a complete fabrication of their own media. What on earth is this man even talking about? The breaking reports about all these massive European clubs wanting to sign Gilberto Mora do not originate from the Mexican press. They are coming directly from major international media outlets. Just take a look at these headlines. This is not some media lie, it is a concrete reality. He is a young talent who is genuinely attracting serious interest abroad. And what do they even mean by amateur leagues? It is absolutely clear that on an international level, the Mexican national team is not superior to Argentina. Nobody is denying that fact. But claiming that Mexican football is amateurish and completely unable to hold its own against South American or European teams is a total lie. Though, to be fair, there is a tiny grain of truth there. European football is undoubtedly on a higher level compared to both the Mexican domestic league and our own national team. Yet isn't it funny how that very same Mexican side they criticize so heavily completely dominated and outclassed Ecuador? We are talking about an Ecuadorian squad that had put together an almost flawless qualifying run, finishing well above giants like Brazil and Uruguay while conceding a mere 2 goals throughout their entire qualifying campaign. Yet Mexico beat them 2-0 and honestly could have scored 7 on them. And guess who the absolute best player on the pitch was that day? It was none other than Gilberto Mora. They claim he disappears under pressure, but he absolutely ran circles around those Ecuadorian defenders. And since we are on the topic of amateur leagues, in the latest Club World Cup, one of Argentina's absolute biggest heavyweight clubs, River Plate, was placed in a group alongside Inter Milan and Monterrey, a Mexican club that does not even rank among the nation's traditional Big Five. But tell me, who actually advanced to the knockout stage? It was not River Plate, it was Monterrey, technically only the 8th biggest club in the Mexican league. Quite a coincidence, is it not? And that was far from the only embarrassment. Boca Juniors, the most iconic and historic club in all of Argentina, completely embarrassed themselves in that very same tournament by failing to defeat Allen City, an amateur team from New Zealand made up of school teachers, doctors, and part-time firefighters who have to train late at night because they cannot make a living from football. They drew 1-1. How ironic, maybe they are finally realizing that they are actually criticizing their own reflection. There is absolutely nothing wrong with pointing out that Gilberto Mora is rapidly shaping up to be a true world-class talent. What really eats away at them is that he is stealing the spotlight over at Real Madrid. Franco will likely end up at a much more modest club while Gilberto Mora rises to the very top, and they simply cannot accept that reality. In fact, Mastantuono himself, fully aware that he had failed, told the Madrid board that he refused to join Fiorentina, choosing instead to head straight back to River Plate. He chose to step down to a lower level rather than fight to make it in Europe. Gilberto Mora, on the other hand, is simply waiting until he turns 18 before he makes his big move. The boy has said it himself, it does not matter where he starts, he will succeed regardless, whether at a mid-tier club or a giant. In a few years, he plans to be playing for the absolute biggest team in the world. Mastantuono did the exact opposite. The moment he realized the European scouts saw right through the hype, he hurried back to Argentina, where people would praise him without asking any hard questions. Pretty pathetic, isn't it? Maybe, just maybe, some of those Argentines are starting to feel a little bit nervous about the future. For starters, they have quietly realized that the Mexican league is now significantly stronger than theirs, and that reality is going to heavily weigh on them as time goes on. Sure, they have talented players, but many of them only know how to kick, and let us be honest, they loved getting aggressive in this tournament. It is probably a good thing they did not cross paths with the Mexicans. Boxing is something we are actually pretty legendary at, and we certainly do not back down from a fight. Yet, because some of them carry such massive egos, they probably think they are superior in that arena too. I am not the one saying this. An Argentine boxer named Con Mancilla actually said it. We Argentines are superior to Mexicans in so many different areas, and boxing is definitely one of them. We simply have more resources, and we are far more complete and technical. What world are they actually living in? We willingly admit that they are better at the national team level, but they refuse to accept that we are superior in club football and in boxing. And they even make up stories about being better off financially, when their own people know exactly how bad the situation is in Argentina. So many Argentines actually come to look for work in Mexico, yet you still see several of their journalists and media figures claiming that life in Mexico is terrible, that there is extreme poverty, and they are not entirely lying, but they always compare it to Argentina, just as they always do. And we have to tell them that if there is poverty in Mexico, the situation in Argentina is actually much worse. But anyway, what do you think about all this? Gilberto Mora will eventually end up signing for Real Madrid and becoming the brand new superstar of world football. He is already the star player of Mexico, and he genuinely believes, without needing anyone else to tell him, that he can become a world-class talent. We will see just how far he goes. He might lose his way along the journey, but at least for now it has already been proven that Gilberto Mora is actually better than the new Messi. I am talking about Franco Mastantuono, whether they like it or not, and it is honestly so sad that he could not find success at Real Madrid. He is probably just a good kid who ended up believing the wild exaggerations of the Argentine sports press. Gilberto Mora is going to be one of the absolute best players in the world. Just wait and see. Long live Florentino Perez. Real Madrid simply fit sign him, and they will almost certainly make it happen. And we are going to keep bringing you all the updates right here. But before we head out, we really want to ask our audience, who do you think is actually better, Franco Mastantuono or Gilberto Mora? Personally, I think Gilberto Mora is far better than the Argentine. I agree. Do you think the same way? Yes, I absolutely believe he will succeed in Europe because he is our new generational talent. As you saw, many of our channel followers completely agree with this, but I want to know, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. I really read and reply to all of them. That is all for this football update. Thank you, and see you next time.